Hi, it's Anne here from Unity Physiotherapy and Wellbeing. This is a short video on the importance of growing and nurturing what's supportive for us, or as we can sometimes say is growing the good. We'll have a quick look at what we mean by this and why it's important and a couple of ways in which we can do it. So some of you may already know what we mean by growing the good, as Vikansan says, or growing and nurturing what's supportive, or growing what's replenishing and restorative. There are lots of ways it could be termed. And by that, we generally mean purposely, consciously, bringing our attention and awareness to the things that are nurturing for our health and well-being and function. Really being present with them, absorbing them and slowing down so that we can really take them in. And these things that are nurturing and supportive are things like compassion and love and kindness and gratitude. There are lots more, like joy and playfulness. There are lots of things. And one of the reasons why these things matter is they're associated with helpful chemical messengers that nurture us. And we could perhaps summarise why they're important into an overarching reason, which is because as human beings we have evolved to have tricky brains. So we've evolved to have a negativity bias. We are wired for protection. So it's a better safe than sorry approach for our survival, which on one hand is helpful for survival. On the other hand, in many ways it's not, because that better safe than sorry approach gets too active, sometimes very active, and it's not supportive for us. The great news is that we can change it. So when protection mechanisms are too high, we will recognise certain patterns and parts of ourselves that are showing up a lot, and they're quite loud, which are things like the self-critic, our anxious self, our angry self perhaps, things like frustration and guilt. And we all have these parts of us. They are part of our protection mechanisms, that's why they show up, and it's not really helpful when they get quite loud, although perhaps at one point in time it was. It generally isn't on a longer term basis, and things like our compassionate self are much more supportive in terms of our function, our health and our well-being, our connection to other people, so many reasons why. And as Rick Hansen says, our minds is like Velcro for the bad and Teflon for the good. And by practicing intentionally, really being in what's nurturing, understanding it and savouring it, we can make those things more sticky, and we can turn down that negativity bias, the protection mechanisms. We can calm systems down. And we all have experiences in life that, if you like, turn the protection mechanism dial up. Sometimes a big thing happens and that dial is whacked right up, and perhaps over time it comes back down fully or a little bit, and sometimes it stays whacked up on high. We also have experiences where perhaps it goes up a bit and then comes back fully down, or sometimes it doesn't come back fully down. We also have experiences where it's lots of little tweaks up and down all the time, and then something perhaps comes along that acts a bit like a catalyst that whacks that volume up, and it's not necessarily a big thing, it just triggers into all the other little tweaks up and down. And these practices are really helpful in turning that protection mechanism dial down again. And sometimes in life things happen that turn our world upside down. It's a part of being human, and we don't know which way up is. And things like self-compassion and love and care are our foundational things to build on. It's really important that we know them and understand them and feel them so that we can build from there. And we can do that by pulling in previous experiences and using them. And if someone hasn't had previous experiences of things like compassion and love and care, then they're the times that usually help from a psychologist is needed to help create some of those building blocks, because we can still create them as adults if we haven't got experiences to draw on. So I've alluded to there a way of practicing, which is by drawing on previous experiences. So if, for example, you know that actually really nurturing love and care and the feeling of being cared for is going to be supportive for you right now, you can pull in a memory, an experience of when you really felt loved, really felt that genuine care. And then you can dive into the body and notice how that's showing up, and where it's showing up, and what it feels like. Really slow down and be with it. Can even absorb at the cellular level by imagining that love and care permeating all the cells in the body. You can bring in the breath when you're bringing in an experience. So you can focus on the breath before you bring in an experience or memory with that love and that care in it. And then notice how it shows up in the body as you notice in the breath in the background. If focusing on the breath isn't helpful for you, you can bring in some gentle movements. So you can bring your hands to palms to facing, and as you breathe in, slowly and smoothly bring them apart, and as you breathe out, slowly and smoothly back together. And that can be helpful, because sometimes for people, focusing on the breath increases anxiety or just doesn't feel right. So adding in some rhythmical slow movement can be helpful. So really understanding how that is showing up in the body, the experience, the feeling that you're drawing on, where it's showing up, really being in it, really absorbing it is really helpful. And another way in which we can really grow and nurture what's supportive is by slowing down when we're in these experiences. So say you were in an experience that was feeling joyful or calm, or there was some playfulness, really slowing down in those moments, connecting with the body, noticing where it's showing up and how it feels, really absorbing it. And the additional benefit of that is something you can then draw on later in a practice, a breath practice, where you bring that experience in, like we've just spoken about, where you can spend some more time in it for a minute or two, or however long you choose. So they're really helpful ways. And I think sometimes in life we can feel like we don't need to do these things, and perhaps in some ways we don't. However, that dial is always being tweaked up and down, even if we're not aware of it. And also, what I see as a really important reason for practicing is that the more we practice, the more we understand them, the easier they are to access, the more they become a foundation. And then when the tricky things happen, they support us. When the real challenges or the really tough times in life happen, they're a foundation from which we can build from. So they are really important. So I have recorded a practice that is like we've just talked about, of bringing in a memory and really nurturing that in the body. It's called Nurturing What's Supportive. You can find it on the Unity Physiotherapy and Wellbeing SoundCloud. I put some practices on there, free practices for people. So there's a few on there. There's also the same practices on my website if you don't want to use SoundCloud, although it does actually go through SoundCloud, so you still technically is using it. So if you go to the meditation page on the Unity Physiotherapy and Wellbeing website, and at the bottom of that page you'll find a series of meditations. So I hope this video has been helpful in some way today, and if you do the practice that it's helpful. I would love to hear feedback from both watching the video and doing the practice, if you do both. If you want to drop me an email, you're welcome to do that. It's info@unityphysio.co.uk. or wherever this video is posted, you can of course post a comment or a question on there. So I hope it's been helpful. I hope you have a great day today and take care.